This is a story about a special song. On July 17th, 1983, this musician named Jerry Dammers went to a concert celebrating the birthday of a man he didn't know that much about. The man was Nelson Mandela. To celebrate Mandela's 65th birthday, some musicians, including exiled musicians from South Africa like Julian Bahula and Hugh Maskela, were putting on a concert to celebrate and to raise awareness. At the concert, they passed out leaflets with information about Mandela's life, and that's where Jerry Dammers learned that Mandela had been imprisoned for the last 21 years, that he had shoes in prison that were too small for his feet, and Jerry started putting these biographical details into lyrics. He'd actually already written the music. He had written this kind of upbeat, joyful instrumental that was inspired by African music, and he decided to put his lyrics about Mandela over that instrumental and call the song Nelson Mandela. The only problem was, at the time, Jerry Dammers didn't really have a band to give the song to. Jerry had grown up in Coventry and had been political since he was a teenager. He had protested against apartheid, he had demonstrated against a tour of South Africa's all-white rugby team, and when he started a band, he purposely put together a band of both black and white musicians. The band was originally called the Automatics. Then they changed their name to The Special AKA, and finally just The Specials. The Specials started around the same time as Rock Against Racism in the UK, and were not just a band, but a political statement. The Specials were at the center of a new scene that was cropping up in England. Bands inspired by the punk movement, but who loved Jamaican ska. The ska revival would actually take its name from a record label that Jerry Dammers started to put out music by his band The Specials and others, Two Tone. The Specials were one of the most successful bands of the two-tone ska revival. Their debut album, produced by Elvis Costello, just called The Specials, was top 5 in the UK. And in 1981, they scored a #1 single in the UK with their song Ghost Town. But that's when things started to fall apart. There were personality clashes in the band. Later, members would say that Jerry was a genius, but it took them a long time to realize that. Lead singer Terry Hall said he was uncomfortable with the success of Ghost Town, that it felt weird being this political band that now had a #1 pop hit. He thought that they should either be one or the other. So backstage at Top of the Pops, when the band was about to perform Ghost Town, Terry quit. He took guitarist Linval Golding and the other singer Neville Staple with him to form a new band, a pop group called Fun Boy 3. And now Jerry Dammers was left trying to put together a new lineup of the group. He went back to the name Special AKA, and that's when he wrote the song Nelson Mandela. He felt like the song was important, so he brought in a lot of different people to work on it. Of course, the current lineup of the Special AKA, which included Rhoda Dakar on vocals. The lead singer was a young singer from Coventry named Stan Campbell. He brought Elvis Costello back to produce it. For the chorus, he used top session singers, stealing a couple away from Pink Floyd, including Karen Wheeler, who went on to be in Soul to Soul. On backing vocals were two singers, Molly and Polly Jackson, who the band's drummer, John Bradbury, had met in a bar. There was also Ranking Roger and Dave Wakeling from The Beat, later from General Public, and as a gesture of goodwill, Jerry invited Linval to come and sing backing vocals as well. And when the song was released in 1984, it became an international hit. It was top 10 in the UK and other countries around the world. It went to #1 in New Zealand, and it actually did a lot to raise awareness about Nelson Mandela's imprisonment and to draw attention to the horrors of apartheid in South Africa. The Specials, as the Special AKA, did eventually release one last album called In the Studio in 1984, but after that, Jerry Dammers focused on political activism instead of music. The lead singer of Nelson Mandela, Stan Campbell, unfortunately suffered a pretty sad fate. He put out a solo album after this that didn't chart, and ever since he has struggled with mental health issues and legal trouble. As the 80s went on, more and more people became aware of Nelson Mandela. And in 1988, 5 years after that concert that Jerry Dammers had gone to that inspired him to write Nelson Mandela, there was a huge benefit concert put on at Wembley Stadium. Jerry Dammers performed alongside stars like Whitney Houston, Dire Straits. This is famously the concert that made Tracy Chapman a star. And then finally, 2 years later, in February of 1990, Nelson Mandela was finally released from prison. In April of 1990, another big concert was put on at Wembley Stadium to celebrate his release. Jerry Dammers, of course, was there and performed, and he got to meet Nelson Mandela. He was introduced to him as the man that wrote Free Nelson Mandela, to which Nelson Mandela said, "Ah yes, very good." And then Nelson Mandela went out to give a speech in front of the Wembley crowd. And for that, Jerry Dammers went into the audience himself, and he watched as people gave Nelson Mandela an almost 10-minute standing ovation. And Jerry said he'd never seen anything like it. He said it was reassuring. It made you think the vast majority of human beings aren't racist and are actually all right. 21